everyone. So this is the video on helpful writing tips and the research paper. You should be able to find the document that I'm going to talk about. You should be able to find that in our Canvas shell, in files, and it's labeled research paper guidelines and helpful writing tips. So I'm just going to go over this in detail. So normally if we were in class, we'd be able to talk about it, which is why I have on the syllabus like we're having like a class discussion, but in reality I'm just doing a short video about it. So I'm just going to go through this document. I'm assuming most of you you know how to open a Word document and read it and understand directions, but I just because this assignment's worth a lot of points, I just want to make sure that we're on the same page, and so I'm just this video is probably going to be all of like 10 or 12 minutes long, just so you guys have a clear understanding of the directions. Okay, so the first part is helpful writing tips. So I just have a list of a few things that you want to be aware of in writing for a science class. So like compared to like writing for like an English course or writing for a history class, the type of writing, the style, what's expected in the writing is going to be a little bit different. So I just want to make sure that I'm giving you guys some good tips and some good tips in general for writing. Okay, so the first one is never use the first or second person narrative. So I have some examples of what that is. So don't insert yourself essentially in any way, shape, or form. Don't say I did this or we did this. If you can't think of another way, like if you're, I shouldn't say, let me phrase that. You should be able to think of another way, in general, how to reword that so you're not using the first or second person narrative. But also, for the assignment for this class, you are writing a research paper, so there shouldn't be a reason why you are inserting yourself into the paper anyway. So this one should be pretty easy for you to figure out. Okay. Number 2. Oh, and then also for number 1, there's some examples of what I mean by that and a way to fix it. Number 2, never use quotes in scientific writing. You need to put ideas into your own words. I want to hear what you have to say. Especially for the research paper, you are, doing a little bit of side reading, and I need to know that you understood what you read and you're pulling that in and you can tell me in your own words. If you can't tell me in your own words, it means probably means you don't understand it. And that's the whole point. Anyone can copy and paste a bunch of quotes. That's not the point of this assignment. I want to know that you picked a topic, you did a little research on it, you wrote a short paper, and you understood some interesting stuff that you learned. That's what I want. That's the main goal of this. Okay, so don't give me quotes. Don't quote anyone directly. I want to hear everything in your own words. Now, of course, that doesn't mean you're not supposed to cite. We're going to get to that in a second, because obviously you're not. This isn't stuff from your own head. You're researching. Okay, so number 3, never use contractions. So don't, hasn't, isn't, doesn't. Don't use those in any way. Instead, obviously you know how to separate a contraction. And the point of this is you never want to have any kind of abbreviation in science. You want everything to be spelled out very clearly. Don't abbreviate, because, and this has happened in classes I've taught, where I've got stuff from students where it literally has said like LOL. Just no abbreviations in any form. Number 4. Never use cultural expressions, metaphors, or colloquialisms. This one is harder, I think, for us because we do this a lot. It's a very, culturally complex and beautiful symbolic way of communicating. We do this all the time in everyday conversation, but in scientific writing, you want to avoid it. So I have a couple of examples. On the other hand, she gave him the cold shoulder, spring to mind. We could list, hundreds of thousands of cultural expressions like this, so you want to avoid them. The main reason is these aren't actually conveying factual information, actual information. Like if I said to you, she gave him the cold shoulder, you know what that means. Like you understand culturally what that means, but there's no actual shoulder involved, so you want this information that you're conveying to be as factual as possible. And also, even if you thought, well, everyone understands it, that might not be the case. What if someone, there's a generational difference or a cultural difference? So someone else coming in from another culture, so the one I always think of is the phrase cold turkey, quitting cold turkey. We might know what that means, but someone else from another country, another culture is going to not have any idea what that means. It's a very weird one to say, right? And generationally too. So I had an older aunt who said, hedge your bets. She told me hedge your bets. And I was like, I don't even know what that means. And so like generationally there might be a difference. So if you're a little younger or older than the person who's reading your paper, so factual information. And number 5, always proofread and spell check and grammar check. Obviously you have those great tools at your disposal. And never fails, at least once a semester I get a paper from a student who clearly has not even just hit the spell check or grammar check. Like please do that. Please proofread or have a friend take, the 3 minutes it'll take, because these are short papers, to proofread. Because sometimes, grammar check or spell check's not going to catch something that you still need to be able to catch. And I do this all the time. I'm reading something and my brain's still filling it in. And it takes someone who hasn't looked at that document to be like, oh, you forgot a word there, or that word's not right, or something, Okay, so now the details of the actual paper. So the first thing is, before you even get started on anything, like, you got to pick a topic. Now, you don't need to tell me what your topic is. You don't need to, get permission. I'm going to trust you all on that. If you aren't sure, if you want to ask me and I can clarify, or I can give you the thumbs up, that's fine. But as long as it's something that we either have already talked about or will talk about. So if it's something that's on the syllabus, if it's something that's in the book, then that's fine. So like, for example, you might, when we were talking about Darwin, you might find just Darwin really interesting. And so you might want to write a short paper about him. That's totally fine. Maybe you're looking at the syllabus and you're like, okay, well, we haven't started talking about Homo erectus yet, but I'd like to write a paper on that. That would be fine too. So any topic that we either have covered or will cover in this class is perfectly fine. Okay, so once you pick a topic, now you're like, okay, I need to write a paper. How do I have a general topic, but how do I kind of break it down into subparts? So there are multiple ways to do this. I would say this is what I put on here, is to kind of break it down into 3 parts. Like, okay, if you said, I want to talk about Darwin, but where do I start? You could say, okay, what are the 3 things I want to talk about? Maybe his traveling on the Beagle could be one. His family life, and then maybe all the different books that he wrote. You could have a very general overview of just his life. That would be totally fine. And then you could write a paragraph or 2 about each of those 3 topics, and suddenly you have a whole paper, right? Because this paper is not very long. You could also get even more specific. You could say, okay, I want to write about Darwin and just his work as a scientist. So you could say, okay, I want to write about his work on the Beagle, when he was on the Galapagos Islands, and then when he was writing on the origin of species. So you could get even more specific. So, and just like I said with the other example with Homo erectus, you could say, okay, I want to talk about Homo erectus tools and Homo erectus diet and Homo erectus brain size. You can be very general, you can be a little more specific. It's really up to you how you want to do that. I'm not expecting, this is not a difficult assignment. I just want to know you found a topic that was interesting, you did a little research, you read a little bit about it, you put it in your own words, and you learned something, and you're showing me this is what I learned, some cool stuff. And that's the main point of this, Okay, so you've picked a topic, you've broken it down to 3 things you're going to talk about, and now, let's see, part C, create an outline. Okay, so then you would just create an outline. I mean, this is how I would do. You don't have to follow this exactly, but this is how when I write a paper, I usually kind of write out my intro, do subpoints, and then that way I can start filling it in. It doesn't feel so overwhelming. Where do I start? So if you had, if you were talking about Darwin and you had these points about, the first one was, Darwin's traveling. You could say, okay, in that paragraph on traveling, I'll talk about how he got hired to go on the Beagle, how long the journey was, and where exactly he went. And so you start making, points and subpoints. Suddenly you've already written a lot and you haven't even really done anything yet. Now you're just kind of filling it in with the information. Once you have an outline, this is what I'm going to do, a game plan, the whole endeavor seems a lot more easy. Now, you might be thinking, that's not the way I write a paper. I have a whole different strategy. That's totally fine. This is for the students because I get this every semester, at least, half the class is I don't know how to start. I don't know where to start. So this is why I'm giving you this. Now, if you have your own way of doing it, do that. That's fine. And then part D for this, create a specific and appropriate thesis statement. So hopefully you understand what that is. Basically, this is in your introductory paragraph. Standard is that it's the last sentence in your introductory paragraph that says, basically it's saying, as the reader, I'm telling you this is what I'm about to talk about. So if you were, writing, like I said, about Darwin, using that same example, the thesis statement could be, it would be about those specific things like Darwin's traveling, family life and writing, whatever I had said. So you phrase that in a way that lets the reader know this is what you're about to read in this order. It's pretty simple. Okay. Paper, now the actual paper guidelines. You might be wondering, like, she keeps saying the paper's not that long. What is it? Here you are right here. It's very obvious in this nice green box. 3 to 4 pages, not too long. Double spaced. Standard Times New Roman, 12-point font. So obviously I have here must include the thesis statement and conclusion paragraph. A minimum of 5 peer-reviewed journal articles. A minimum of 5, and they have to be peer-reviewed. I'm going to talk about that in 1 second. You must have a works cited section. So I'm assuming most of you know what that is. At the end of the paper, it's works cited. You can use, so I have here use an AJPA format. You might be thinking, I don't even know what that is. That's like standard in anthropology. You can use whatever you're used to, MLA, APA, whatever, as long as you do. I really don't care. I have given you examples here, I think, of how to use AJPA format. If you do that, that would be great, but I'm not going to mark you off if you use MLA. So, if you're really used to one, then just go ahead and use that. Obviously, just like with everything else, submit via email, iPad, or as a hard copy. I think I wrote this before. I wasn't sure if we were going to be in class or not. Okay, fine. Obviously, and you already know at this point, docx PDF, so that's pretty easy. Okay. So I have some examples of the peer review. So if you're going down right here at number 1, it says the research paper must include citations from peer-reviewed research journals. So here I have a couple of places to start. So the best place to start is Google Scholar. 99% of the stuff you will find on there is going to be peer-reviewed sources. Every once in a while, something else will sneak in that's not. And even if you weren't sure, I have already listed right here a few journals that you can actually go to. Like you can search, in Google or Google Scholar, your specific topic. So here we have, American Journal of Physical Anthropology, Journal of Human Evolution, like the list is right there. So this is a good place to start. Please do not, if I see on your paper, I'm reading your paper and I get to the works cited and it's Wikipedia or it's someone's blog, or it's, some pop culture news article, that does not count. Now you might start there in your own research and be like, I found this really cool article on Facebook that seemed really pertinent. I can't use that as a source, but let me read that article, and they probably cite the medical study that was done or whatever. You need to go to the original source, or at least a peer-reviewed source. It can't just be anything you find on the internet. If that happens and you have fewer than 5 peer-reviewed sources, I'm going to mark you down for that. It can't be one peer-reviewed source and the rest of it's Wikipedia or someone's blog or, Okay. Do not, I didn't write this in here, but do not use your textbook. I mean, you can use your textbook, but it's not going to be considered one of the 5. I want you to do outside research. Don't cite my YouTube videos and the textbook. You're not going outside of the class. Like, you need to do a little research. And then also, in case you weren't sure, you should have access to most of the stuff you find online through the CSN library website. So I'm not sure exactly how it works for CSN, but you should be able to log in to my CSN and go to the library links, and you should be able to search. And usually what happens is most universities, colleges have agreements with these journals, and so you don't have to pay for anything. It's open access, but you have to be logged in through your school's system first. You should be able to do it. You shouldn't have to be on campus or anything to do that. So if you have any questions, let me know, and I'll see if I can help you, but I'm assuming most of you kind of know how to do that at this point. Okay, I think that's it. We kind of went through everything. Like I said, most of this shouldn't be a problem for you. 3 to 4 pages, double space, standard Times New Roman, 12-point font. The main thing I would say that every semester that I assign this is it's the peer reviewed part that students have trouble with. It has to be peer reviewed. The majority of the students do fine, but there's always a handful of students who just don't, I think, grasp what that means. And this is really important that you're not just pulling information randomly. It has to be from a peer reviewed scientific source. So if you find a source and you're not sure if it is, like, you can always ask me. But I think most of you are fairly discerning in this. Like I said, if you're getting your information from Google Scholar, if you like go to google.com/scholar and you're like, Charles Darwin, Galapagos Islands, 99% of what you find on there is going to be fine. You're going to find journal articles, you're going to find some books. That's fine. Books are hit or miss. Try to stick with journals, but like an edited version of a book, like it's probably going to be all right. If you're in doubt, ask me, and I'm not going to be like, oh, they used 4 journal articles and 1 biography. Like, of course not. But like I said, what I don't want to see is you've used 5 sources that are all from Wikipedia. That's what I want you to avoid. So you guys know how I am with the grading. I'm a pretty easy grader, and I want to see you guys learning. That's the whole point of this. So, I'm going to be a little strict on a few things, but okay. Don't stress too much about this. If you are stressing about this paper, do not. It is worth a lot, that is true, but it's not that difficult of an assignment. Think about your article reviews that you've done. Those are like, not even, this isn't even much longer than this. Trust me. I have colleagues who teach the same class, and they are requiring from their intro students to write like a 10-page paper. I'm not doing that, obviously. 3 to 4 pages. And when I say 3 to 4 pages, that doesn't mean write 2 pages and go 1 sentence onto the 3rd page. That's 2 pages. I want 3 full pages, which is why I put 3 to 4. That way you can go a little onto the 4th page, which means you've given me 3 full pages, or you can go a little longer. If you realize you're like going into maybe 5 pages, that's fine. I don't want to get an 8 to 10 page paper from you. That's just extra work for you that you don't need to do. I'm not going to give you extra credit for it. So, and also sometimes it's important to know how to keep things concise, short, to the point. So 3 to 4 pages. If you're on to the 5th page, not a big deal, but don't really give me anything much longer than that. You really shouldn't be. Like I said, it's extra work. Don't overwhelm yourself. Don't give yourself more. I'm sure you already have a lot of other stuff for other classes. Okay, so this one a little longer than I thought, but it's fine. Still pretty short and sweet. And if you have any questions about this, please reach out to me. And like I said, you still have weeks until this is due, which is why I wanted to get this out to you guys now. Okay, so I'll see you guys in the next lecture.